Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. This video is basically going to be a complete overview of Windows Neptune and all the weird things they introduced and all the things that changed. So let's just go ahead and install it. I'm just going to call it Windows Neptune. Right, what shall we say? Windows 2K or NT4? Oh, I think I'm going to go with Windows 2000. Change that. And what shall we give it? 512 megs of RAM, I reckon. Seems reasonable. That's fine. Right, now just got to browse to wherever I have put it. It's not in Windows Whistler, is it? There it is. Okay, so let's start this up and take a look. Notice it's weird, the branding on this one, because it says Neptune setup and starting Neptune, which is strange. Anyway, so here it sort of looks like, well, it's identical to the Windows 2000 setup, which is strange. So let's go ahead and install it. Continue, C, F8, unpartition space. Now, there was something that I've got in my homework here. About, I don't know how to activate it, but yeah, that's something that I'm going to do later. So I'm going to have to install this on a file allocation table. Okay, not just because it's slightly faster, but also because on my notes that I have, there is something interesting which you can activate with. Oh, here we go. Yeah, it's the fast boot feature. Although I don't know how to activate it, so that's going to be interesting. Of course, copying everything over quite fast. Okay, so let's just restart it. And we don't want to boot from the CD. So the boot screen is also different, as you can see. It's got the Microsoft Neptune logo there. There seems to be a trend in this. It says Microsoft Neptune everywhere. I suppose it's because Microsoft might have been planning to completely phase out Windows and just call everything Microsoft and then the product there is, which would have simplified it. Like they've got Microsoft HoloLens and things like that, so Neptune installation progress. I suppose that's good as well, because there's sort of an unattended bit there, which is interesting. Okay, so let's have a look. Oh dear. It's just going to install the drivers. It's also got this nice little sort of Neptune logo up there, and if we move this dialog box out of the way, we can also see it's got that Microsoft Neptune background. Another feature which I want to show you is this part up here which says comments. If I open that, then this is also apparently new in Neptune as well. And well, I suppose it's just submitting feedback to Microsoft. So if you want to say that a problem is intolerable, and pretty much everybody will notice it, and then you complain about, for example, the and if we press that and press submit, then I wonder if anyone will actually ever see that. Probably not. This is going to take some time. Okay, so here's the locale settings. It's just going to be a simple case of switching that to the UK. I mean, that's pretty much the same as the Windows 2000 is up there. Okay, so it's now reached the end of the Windows Neptune installation process. So let's just quickly restart the computer. Though there might be something before it actually boots to the desktop, though, which there most probably will be. There'll probably be something about networking or something. I know 2000. Preparing network connections, and probably going to be something about user accounts as well. No, seems so wrong. Right, so the desktop has taken its time to load. I believe there is a fault in Neptune, which I might actually have on my little notes here. No, I don't think I do actually, but I remember reading on the Beta Archive site that there is a problem with the Neptune Explorer windows, and that might be why it takes such a blooming long time to load. If I quickly go up here and set a Control-Alt-Delete, maybe if I go new task, then hopefully that'll make it hurry up a bit. Oh, here we go. So it's come up with the first dialog, which I actually have on my notes, surprisingly. And this is obviously the Windows Identities thing that I'm going to be getting onto a bit later. This is join.dom.exe. But yeah, I'm going to get onto that later because that's a sort of weird part of the out-of-box experience. Which I'll show you a little later, and there's an Explorer window. So the first thing I'm going to actually do is install guest editions, so it won't be a moment. That's better. Nice resolution, nice colours, yeah, all looks a lot nicer. So this basically means we can get on to the first thing that I wanted to talk about today. If we put the Neptune ISO file back in the virtual drive, and the first thing that we want to do is go to my computer. Oh, that's weird, it's still on that one. Hang on, I'll just refresh this. There we are. That one, explore. So if we go to the i386 folder in obviously the Neptune CD, and we need to see where accore.dll is, and we've got to copy that to the system32 folder in obviously this VM. So one moment. Okay. Windows and system32. So now it's just going to be a case of finding that file. I wonder if I can sort these alphabetically. Ah, there we are. Okay, so if I copy that and stick it in there, and now the next thing that we want to do is go to start, run, and make sure I type this right. 1 minute. 32. Okay, so now let's hope that it works. Oh good, that's what we like to see. So now if we browse again, the run dialog, and go to percentage thingy, stick the capitals on, and then another percentage thingy, and backslash activity. Oh, it's already got it there. How nice. Okay, so now this is the next major thing I want to obviously talk about, and these are the Windows Neptune activity centers. Now, these are fascinating because this was years, literally years ahead of its time. If I open up this thing up here called Start, and then go to View and Full Screen, then we can see here this is what is debatable actually, whether this was actually what they were planning to include in obviously the final release of Windows Neptune. And it's interesting because if you look at this is a full screen, possibly start menu interface. And think about a full screen start menu interface. Where do we see that? We see it in Windows 8 and 8.1, and if you want to, in 10. So it's just fascinating really, because obviously they probably pulled that idea out of Neptune, the idea of a full screen interface. So it really is rather fascinating really. And yeah, I mean the next thing, you can actually set this as obviously the desktop background, so to speak, but I'm not going to do that today. You can actually look online and obviously find little tutorials on how to make it the background, and if you want me to, then I'll do a separate video about how to actually make this the desktop background. But what we're going to do obviously now, well, let's just have a look at this first. So the first thing that we can see here is that it wants me to obviously connect to the internet on this VM. So if I close that, and one moment, I'll just quickly connect the VM to the internet. Okay, so it doesn't want to connect to it doesn't want to connect to the internet. So we can have a look around though. I mean, email connects to obviously the dreaded Outlook Express. Internet Explorer connects to well, the internet connects to Internet Explorer naturally. I'm not sure if that goes to your default browser though, or whether it just goes to IE. And documents, it goes curiously to WordPad. I thought that would go somewhere else, but obviously now I see what they mean about write a letter, create a report and all that. Music doesn't work, photos doesn't work, games doesn't work, and help and support takes you to the help and support bit. And I have got some notes on this which I can now obviously read out somewhere anyway, and that is, well, that is not on here. Oh, here it is. Yeah, so help and support. So this is an early build of the help and support dialog for Windows Codename Millennium, or what would eventually be Windows ME. So it's strange actually how they took this out of obviously the very early versions of Windows ME. So strange, isn't it? And yeah, so I mean it's quite interesting that they've got recent programs, and that does seem to work. And files and folders, Explorer should open, although it doesn't. That doesn't work. I don't think the recycle bin works either. No, nothing's open, so that doesn't really work very well. And if we go to customize this page, then we can select different themes, as you can see there. If we go on exit, then yeah, you can see that's a horrible theme, and here's the default theme, which I prefer. I prefer a million times more than that jump theme. And yeah, so that's the Windows Neptune Activity Centers. So I'll just minimize that. And the next point that I want to get onto is the user account. And if we go to the control panel, wherever that's gone, there we are, and go to Windows Identities. you can see we've got this thing that's sort of similar to the activity centres, and in a sense this did actually sort of make it through into Windows XP, because I can't remember what they called it in XP, but it was very similar to this. And we have got 4 types of account. So if I go and create a new account, then you can see here that we can type a name for that account. So that can be Captain Kirk of the Starship Enterprise, and not sure who'd want a child account, but can't seem to be able to change that. If we change the account type, then we can see here we've got 4 types of accounts. We've got owner, that's basically the administrator. An adult, that can make sort of standard changes to the computer, but nothing major. And a child, that's an account that, well, whose activity can be monitored, and they're safeguarded against corrupting computer settings. And guest, which basically means obviously somebody whose their settings, themes, web browsing history, etc. will be deleted every time they turn off the computer, but not the actual documents they create. If they go into a WordPad and create a file, for example, that won't be deleted. So yeah, we can upgrade Captain Kirk to an adult account, and we can also make him a password as well. So I'm not sure. Oh yeah, it does hide it. So if we make his password Enterprise, for example, then obviously that will be hidden from anyone who's obviously snooping in behind them. So yeah. Anyway, so that's that, and it's interesting that they've got all them types of accounts, because I can't remember what they called them in Windows XP. I don't think XP had 4 types of accounts though. I know they had a guest account, and I mean, for that, virtually all Windows versions to date have a guest account, and even Windows 10 has one hidden in it somewhere. But yeah, it's just interesting really to obviously see all that. And anyway, so the next, I've already talked about the Help and Support Centre, so I can go over to my second sheet of paper now. And the first thing that we're going to be looking at is the auto update feature that we have in this build. Now this is really interesting, and I'm not sure if it's going to work. No, I think that is in, yeah, I think that's in the WinNT directory, so I'm going to have to go and find that. What am I doing? Computer on WinNT, and it'll be quicker if I do this. Oh, here we go. He's got his own little custom thingy as well. Oh, here we go. Down here it says welcome to auto update. So what happens if I press on that? So apparently there's something. Doesn't seem to want to open though. Doesn't seem to want to open though for some reason. Perhaps it's just thinking about it. There we are. So this is basically the first ever auto update thing that they ever actually included in any Microsoft, obviously Microsoft Windows version, and it's presumed that the actual name, obviously WAUCLT.exe stands for Windows Update Auto Update Client, which is possible. That's according to Beta Archive, and it's obviously fascinating because this did make it through to XP, and then it made it through to Vista and 7, and obviously 8, 8.1 and 10, and so on and so forth. and obviously it's all heavily edited in today's standards, but yeah, it's interesting that this was the first ever version they ever made. So shall we notify me when updates are available? Notify me when updates are available for downloads, and again before installation. And then it's got the option for do not automatically update my computer. Oh, so that takes you to a web page. That's interesting. So they might have actually made a web page for it. That would be interesting, or I don't know if that's just because it doesn't actually work very well. Let's just end that one. And that's gone away. So that was interesting. So that was the auto update client anyway, and that was the first ever version that they made. So the next feature that I want to talk about is called Mars.exe. So let's hope I won't have to go hunting for this one. Okay, so I think it's running, but it doesn't want to. It's a bit shy, unfortunately. No, I don't think. You might be able to see it, but my eyes aren't brilliant, so I can't see it in there. That's interesting. Basically what it was, Mars.exe, it gave web pages the appearance of actual programs, which was also present in retail versions of Windows XP. So that's interesting. And there was another thing as well called Fast Boot, which didn't make it into XP, but it's not really known exactly how it works, and I haven't found where to find it, so I can't unfortunately obviously show it to you. But it appears to obviously be a snapshot of the kernel and boot drivers, so that's rather interesting. And now something that I can show you, not in that one, well, somewhere. A moment. Here it is. So if we go on local area connection and go to properties and then go to sharing, you can see down here enable firewall mode for this connection. Now this was the first integrated firewall that Microsoft ever introduced into any version of Windows, and it's rather interesting. I mean, it's just one of those things which it was first introduced in this weird version of Windows that was never actually released, because obviously the teams that are working on Microsoft Neptune and another project called possibly Microsoft Odyssey or Microsoft Windows Odyssey, which was going to be the next business version of Windows, then merged together to make a project called Windows Codename Whistler, which eventually obviously became Windows XP. And yeah, I mean, if we just check this and press OK, then that is the integrated Windows firewall activated, and it probably doesn't work very well and it's extremely primitive, but oh well. And possibly the last thing that I want, well, one of the last things that I want to show you is this one, and my picture slideshow. Now, the interesting thing about this is this isn't in Windows 2000 or Windows ME, so Neptune was possibly the first version of Windows where it was, well, where it was obviously made. And it's just interesting because that's just another feature which was made in Neptune that made it through to XP and all versions of Windows to date. So yeah, it's rather interesting. And one other thing as well, I believe I mentioned this at the beginning of the video. Now this is join.exe, comes up with this thing called create the first Windows identity. Now this is curious because if we go back into settings really quickly, and you'll notice that this is also called Windows Identities, the user account management system there. And that I think it was probably part of the Windows out-of-box experience, but something weird happened and then it ended up showing on first wing, so strange. So yeah, rather weird, really. If I call this one Captain Picard, also of the Starship Enterprise, and press OK, then it wants you to restart your computer for these new changes to take effect. If I press no, because I'm not particularly fussed about that, then yeah, obviously I don't think it works anyway, because somebody's put on the internet that it comes up with an error message when you restart. So anyway, one other thing is called themes.exe, and this is basically copied out of the Windows 98 and Windows ME, and Windows 90, it's the Windows 98 Plus pack, sorry, and this is basically well, what would be all of the Windows themes which have come with this, and it's got current Windows settings or other, and then I suppose it just shows you, well, it just means you can browse to the theme that you want to implement. And I'm not sure if I go to settings, not settings, silly me, Windows Standard, yeah, it has got all of the themes down here, so I'm not sure why this doesn't work. I suppose it was just a copy, and it was sort of hard coded, so they couldn't really do anything with it. And lastly, this is the last thing that I want to talk to you about in this video. It is called multi-dsk.exe. Oh, we can't find it. Oh, it's the Neptune disk, silly me. It's one of those other weird ones. One moment. Here it is, multi-dsk. It must be this one. And this was a program, as you can see, made for Windows NT. Oh, and this is interesting. I thought it was an upgrade client for older versions of Windows. This is a virtual desktop. Oh no, that is really, really interesting. Because the next time we saw that, well, the next time we saw that was integrated was in Longhorn, Windows Codename Longhorn, and then it was a little add-on companion that you could get for Windows XP as well, and it's also in Windows 10, which they claimed it was a new feature. Oh, now that is interesting. Didn't expect that. Oh, now this is even more interesting, because you can go right click and press run, and it comes up with its own run dialog. I wonder if I can go. Oh, and it does! That works as well. You can add a desktop. Press exit. Any unsaved information will be destroyed. Sounds quite dramatic. Okay then. No, and then it logs you out. And this is one other thing that I also want to talk to you about, the welcome screen, as you can see here. This was also obviously well, this was present in Windows XP, obviously heavily edited, but this was the first ever full screen obviously logon screen, so it's rather interesting. Go with Captain. So let's just do one last thing, which is the activity centers. If I find where I put them. Here we go. Backslash. Okay. And I mean, this is another thing as well. There are lots of references to Millennium Desktop, and like that's the code name for Windows ME. So quite a bit of this is actually taken out of early versions of Windows ME, which is interesting. And yeah, so I mean, this is probably most probably the biggest feature about Windows Neptune I wanted to show you. because this was just, it's just so weird looking at this, because this actually sort of made it through to Windows 8, although obviously it was dropped out in XP, Vista and 7. In Windows 8, as you know, that did have a full screen start menu interface, and it wouldn't have turned out well in this because it didn't turn out well in Windows 8. It would have ended up like 8.1, like going between this and the desktop, but who knows how it would have originally intended to be made. So yeah, and there's also the fact that quite a bit of the branding says Microsoft Neptune rather than Microsoft Windows Neptune or just Windows Neptune. So I mean, this was a really strange time in sort of Windows development, really, because they were sort of thinking about phasing out of the whole idea of Windows and just going towards Microsoft, and then obviously the product name. So who knows how it would have all turned out if they would have released Neptune eventually. And nobody knows why they didn't release Neptune. I mean, it had so many new ideas, but then they just cancelled the entire thing. I mean, there were also references to the Neptune server in some of the system files, and although that's not entirely known if they had actually started developing Neptune server yet or just components for it, which are testing out in this. So yeah, I mean, that basically rounds it up for this video. Thank you all very much for watching, and one last thing before I go, I want to show you what, wow. Well, that was a shame. I was hoping to show you the bit where it's tried to hibernate, but it doesn't want to show you that, unfortunately, now. If I turn it off once I log back in, hopefully I can show you, because it does actually have a hibernate feature, which is interesting. Oh, there we are, you saw resume in there. If I power this off, which is now not going to work, because what I wanted to show you was the part where it showed you that it was hibernating, because obviously Windows 2000 and Windows ME and all previous versions never had a hibernate feature, but obviously Windows XP did, and it still exists in Windows 10, because I use it quite often as well in Windows 10. So, oh, there we are, you can see there it says hibernating. So yeah, that was basically the last part of this video that I wanted to show you. So thank you all very much for watching, and I am doing a complete Windows XP development series on my channel, so you can have a look at that if you want to. So all that's left to say is see you later. Bye bye.